Hey, Rakesh.
Hello. Good evening.
Pull up the notes. Hey, folks. Hey there.
Hello.
Hey, David.
Samir won't be joining in today.
Okay. I definitely have a number of agenda items. I haven't put them on the notes yet. I can do that. It sounds like though, maybe not today, maybe it hasn't been done. We need to migrate the meeting notes because it's too long. It's a separate.
I took a stab at it, just a temporary measure.
Yeah,
copied
that's
over
cool.
the 2021 notes into another HackMD. The HackMD is at the end where we have the archive. I've added the link in there, and
Yep.
I removed the 2021 January notes just so that we can add new ones for now.
Yeah.
I'll share the link. It's
What was
also
that?
there
Sorry.
at the end of
Yeah.
our notes.
What was that?
I copied over all the 2021 meeting notes into this link. It needs to
Oh,
be.
okay, that's what I thought you were saying. So Dave and I were just going through some repos yesterday. We need to archive those as PRs into the meeting notes.
Yeah, I saw that, but yeah, I didn't have time to do that step. If somebody can take that up, converting
Okay.
this.
Yeah, I can
PR.
pick that up. Yeah, I can pick that up, no problem. And then I guess we can, since you've already migrated the note, for if we want just now, we can delete it from our current notes just for performance for today, I guess.
Yeah. I just wanted to wait before we delete.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. I can just go through and do that right now. I see that you've copied everything.
I had a few items on the agenda. And,
Okay.
David, you could add your items into.
Yeah. Why don't you go ahead and start, and I'll add my items in.
Okay. Give me just a second. Sorry, just another moment. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to submit a few spec updates. I don't have the PRs ready, but just giving heads up. I'll work with Shive and Roy to get feedback from their side later today when I publish the PRs. There are three at this point. We'll discuss the last one. The trust policy, our initial version supported in a single policy, we had ability to specify multiple trust stores. Then we simplified it in the next version. We are based on further feedback where we're adding that back. So in the trust policy, it was an array before, then it just became a object. It's just a field. We are changing that back to an array. And then the custom verification level, I think we have made progress on the basic verification, these levels or presets. And we're planning to add the custom one, which we had like an early version here, what a custom looks like. But I'll be spending some time refining that and making a proposal of what custom looks like. Right now, we just have support for this. In the
Lynn, I just
Go on.
before you get into the customization stuff, can you articulate the reason for an array rather than an individual? I can assume, but I want to have a better understanding because it definitely makes things, it enables more scenarios, but it certainly makes things more complex.
This one, the trust store.
The array, yeah, the collection of trust stores versus a singular.
So right now it's a single directory. This just allows you to specify multiple directories. I think I don't have the full set of reasons right now. I'll put them in the PR. One of the reasons is without the support, you are required to, if you had multiple trust stores that you are managing separately, you would be required to merge them, which is an additional step for the end users. So for example, if you had a private trust store of your organization certificates and a public CA trust stores, and you wanted to specify both of them, you couldn't. You would, as in you could, but you'd have to manually or through some process, merge those two trust stores and then give a reference to that single trust store. Whereas here we are saying we are not creating additional friction for you to, you manage your trust stores as they are, and you can specify multiple trust stores, which was the original thought, but in favor of keeping our earliest version had that. And then in favor of keeping the config simple and implementation simple, we changed it, but I think there are valid reasons to support that. Can't hear you. You're on mute, Steve.
Right. It makes sense. It just makes things a little more difficult if we're doing the notation certain key add, that to make things more simple, that we'd have to actually add which trust store we want to add them to. So it's not a blocker. It's just
The
trying
cert
to narrow down scope. That's all.
I think I want to reiterate, and we have covered this earlier. I put a comment on those commands to the cert add from Alpha 1 adds a certificate to a single file, the previous config JSON certificates. That is not supported in RC1. In
I don't know
RC1,
if we've closed on that. Like we don't support the config. I totally agree. We want to switch from the config to the trust store policy, but this is the balance of usability that we've been discussing, and I wrote that discussion on it.
I've responded to that. In RC1, these our focus is enabling sign and verify. We said management of trust or trust policy. Once we added trust or and trust policy, all of those commands need to be updated. And those updates are not straightforward because this config, for example, how do you add a policy? The command for that requires all of these parameters. How do you add a certificate into a trust store? It's more steps than what is currently there, which just adds a certificate. I forget the representation into the config file. And we currently don't have that in the RC1 scope. Only sign and verify command parameters. That is the scope of the spec too, the CLI command spec. The focus is sign and verify because we want to finalize the sign and verify experience. But the trust or trust policy, managing them through CLI, that experience isn't finalized.
I think the point I want to bring up is we need to make things usable. If I have to go edit an XML file, or a JSON file, I have no idea what to put in, and I'm sent off to docs that are never kept up to date. And I don't think we've hit the bar. This is the cert create scenario, and this is the ability to add something. So if I did a cert add and it added some JSON with defaults, I think that's totally fine. Like, I'm not saying we have to have all the parameters in the CLI for all the tweaks.
We don't have the
solution.
We don't have the bandwidth. It will further move RC1 timelines, which we are already delayed on. And this can be a feature that can be added to RC2. Right now, newer, like at least whatever we didn't agree on, we are just punting it on to RC2, which the sooner we close RC1, we are able to add newer things into RC2.
Do we agree? So if you have a format that you expect to be in the trust store policy and it's based on a particular key, then why couldn't the notation cert add that to it and just boilerplate the whatever you expect to be in the XML file? Sorry, I keep on saying XML because I'm looking at this. It looks like XML in the JSON file.
My headset turned off. Can you repeat? I missed your whole last sentence.
What I'm saying is if you have an expected format that you want to see in the trust store and there is some level of default, then why couldn't notation cert add the cert and the defaults? So then the user has something in the file that they have a place to start to edit.
There is no default. So first of all, the trust store is not file-based. It's all directory-based. And there is no default. These are explicitly specified.
No, but the values, you've got a whole bunch of name value pairs in here from level strict and override and so forth. What I'm saying is, do we expect users to just magically know what to put in this file? Like, we have to find a usable.
I want you to go through the trust policy and like point out specific things that you feel are friction, because we went over this, reviewed this quite in detail. So basically, I don't want to re-litigate things that we discussed and approved. The current policy has trust store, single trust store, which we want to support multiple. And the current signature verification has this strict or the different precepts like strict, skip, etc. The second change I'm talking about is, and we have discussed this previously, to be able to override specific switches. Most customers can start with the simple version, which is very easy to say. Doesn't mean there's no documentation required. The getting started definitely requires documentation because you need to write a policy. And we expect customers to write a policy of what they trust. You can't start with a default.
All of that is fine, but it just, if it's not usable, then we didn't hit the bar.
I mean, I want you to define things specifically, what you don't think is usable. And again, I don't want to spend too much time on this because I want to get to project updates and David's items. So like, I'm basically asking for specific feedback. If you're saying usability, we can talk about specific points of this specific thing isn't usable because XYZ, and we can even capture that in the discussion. I'm fine to cover that offline.
Okay. I do not want to recreate Kubernetes YAML files in JSON. That it's just ridiculously complex to be able to use.
That,
Yeah, I would-
that is a very general statement. Kubernetes YAML file and what it controls is very different than a trust policy and what it controls.
I would say that there is. I'm agreeing with Steve in general. Like once you start editing JSON or YAML or files like that, you do have especially when they're complicated and a lot of lines, you get into usability concerns. And so yeah,
I mean the general feedback is taken. No, we don't want end users to go edit or add certificates into directories. We don't want them to directly manipulate the JSON. That is the preferred experience. Should that be in RC1 or not? I don't think it should be in RC1. It's a lot of effort to write a set of commands which allow you to manipulate the JSON in a correct fashion.
I'm not even suggesting we have to edit the J. We have to finish this here, but
okay.
it's not. I don't think we can just close this as here's a chunk of JSON that somebody has to figure out how to edit, and we're done for RC1.
Can you make a proposal of what solution you're looking for?
Notation cert add. You specify the key and whatever the defaults, whether it be signature verification strict, is plopped in the JSON file. That's actually whatever you think is the default that they would then go edit.
You can create a PR on that. If you can create a PR on that, explain why the default makes sense for the majority of getting started experience, that would be a starting point.
Okay.
Okay. So the spec updates item you have, did you cover just the first one, or did you want to cover the next two, custom verification, directory based?
Yeah, I will cover the next one. I'll try to keep it quick. The custom verification level is same. We have a crude example here that this is just an illustration. This is not supported in the current version or currently what we are working on. Currently, we support this. You specify a signature verification, strict, skip, audit, permissive, those are the levels. But those levels mean map to something, which is the set of checks and their values, whether they are enforced or logged. So I'm going to submit a PR to make for this custom level, which is not in its ideal form, making that better. And the third one, directory-based config precedence. Let's open that. This is after Shivai's directory spec. We talked about in certain scenarios. So the directory spec defines two sets of configurations, one for a system administrator and one for a user. We can quickly, we can go to the actual one. Yeah, like the different set of paths based on what role you are. And the additional feature we wanted was admin role should be able to lock down the config and say, even if the current behavior is, and I think that's a good getting started or a general behavior, where if both system and user level are present, the user level takes precedence. But there are cases where you want you're setting up a execution environment or a secure environment where an admin role has set up the trust policy and trust store. You don't want a user role. A user role may be like a service role, which is operating on that same environment, to be able to override that by defining its own trust policy. Basically means it bypassing whatever the admin set. So the proposal is in the config JSON, we can figure out on what the key is. I haven't converted this into a PR yet. The config JSON only for the system level. can specify a config behavior, which default value is user, which is what we have. User takes precedence over system. But they can set it to system, which means even if user defines overriding config, that doesn't override the system values. That's the
So-
general idea. Open to hear feedback.
Yeah, and I just got back, so I'm just trying to catch up with you. So it's great to get these queued up and discussed. I do worry about the complexity here and, the default that a user can configure things. And I think if a user has admin, they can just do sudo, right? It's not complex, but having the default be user just leaves it really likely that a good user is not going to remember to set something and a bad user is going to take advantage of it. So I'm worried about the default there. I like the separation, and that's awesome.
The default is what you would use in most cases. Like if you're,
The default would be a user, the
multiple-
average user can change the config.
yeah,
So why do I even verify anything? I mean, if a user can change anything, then if I get a failure, I immediately change it and just say, yep, go ahead and use it. So the whole idea is that
I don't understand.
it's secured by default.
You can make it restrictive by default. That'll probably make getting started difficult. Like a user will have to, on a developer machine, they'll have to switch to an admin role, set it in particular places. Or if it's, I don't know, if it's a developer host shared by multiple users, just having the system level shared and not being able to control, that's where having the user precedence makes sense. The system level,
When would a user preference, if a user doesn't have access to the admin configuration, why would we ever let the user override? I mean, the whole idea is that it's supposed to be a secured thing. And developers that don't have access is because somebody has restricted their access.
so you're saying if the admin level policy wasn't there, so this is it only in the case when both of them conflict.
What I'm saying is that Trustor should be an admin configuration, and if you have rights to admin, great. If you don't, you can't. I'm just talking about the policies and the keys. I'm not saying verify. Obviously, verify as long as the configuration, the Trustor policy is configured, it'll pass. You don't need admin rights to call verify. You don't even need admin rights to call sign, per se, right? It's because you're probably using a remote key vault provider. But if you're trying to verify something, the fact that it's on the client, if a bad actor has access because they can hijack the process, or you're running a binary that you don't even realize, or a script, and it just makes a change to the file, all of a sudden you don't even know what's going on. It's just all of a sudden things are running and being verified. So the whole idea here is, if I have to do sudo, or if I have to, go to a directory that I need permissions to.
This is addressing the scenario where your user role doesn't have sudo or doesn't have admin. There's a separation between.
What's the valid user where the user doesn't have, and they have the ability to configure Trustor policies? If I don't have admins in my box in the environment, what good does it do to let me change it?
Discussion then I think we can have right now. I'll submit a PR with some level of details, and we can debate it. This again related to some of the feedback that you gave earlier. If you want,
No, it's great to see this. Don't get me wrong. I think it's awesome that this, we're able to bucket this and bring this back in, the appropriate way. It's just, I think the conversation is the right conversation. We're just talking about what's the default.
I think it'll take time to explain both the scenarios and which files are involved. Again, I'll defer it. I'll open up here and then we can discuss it there. Next item was just task status updates. I just put a generic one. I think David probably has that too.
Yeah, so maybe I'm just wondering if you want me to share the spreadsheet because it ties into kind of the items I have, I'm guessing, for the status updates.
Yeah,
Do you want me to just share?
Yep.
Okay. Do you all see it?
I can see it.
Okay. All right. So we, I mean, I basically migrated everything over to the board minus the things that are in yellow, and this one, there's one on that's on our side that'll be done today. So, but the yellow items that are here, I wanted to at least focus on for now because those are the ones that aren't migrated that I can't address because they're assigned to you, Milind, and team. So can we focus on those maybe?
Yeah, we can start with those.
Okay, all right, so the generate JWS signature basic signing. We've got, looks like this issue here.
This is in PR, right? Have we merged this, Milind?
This is Pritesh's PR on the signature envelope. Yeah, that got merged yesterday.
Okay, so which repo would it be in?
It's in notation core go.
Core Go.
Okay. So
Let's see.
I mean, I see open container dependency. Maybe it was in notation go.
Yeah, I'm seeing.
It should be core go.
Can you
maybe
go to
it's-
the repository? It should add.
Oh yeah, it's not merged.
no.
Looks like it's not merged. It's still
this
open.
one?
Yep.
143 comments. So
Yeah, it's a big one.
okay. So so what's holding us back? It looks like we have 2 approvals, one from Microsoft and one from your side. So do we just need to merge it?
Yeah, I think we just need to merge it. Yeah, I'm surprised. If you can ping me that link, I'll merge it.
Are there open issues on this one?
Will this close it out if it's, I mean, will this complete the signing piece? Like, or is there other pieces to make this?
No, I think so.
Okay.
This covers both entirety of the sign and verify, except times, right?
Okay, let me go here. And then link to this. And we'll just put in the spreadsheet then that value. And then I'll mark this as basically done. I'll put it as green. Well, it's whatever. Okay, I'll fix the color later. Okay.
Line number 30. 30 is the same thing. Signature verification part 1. It is the same task. It is done as well. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. What about verification extensibility?
Which one are we looking at? Verification extensibility.
I'm not sure. I haven't done a search. I think my gut is that there are some items that are related to this already on the board, but don't know. Have to.
No, these are not started. I will be publishing the spec soon for this. So we did all of the signing plugin work. The verify plugin spec is complicated. It depended on other pieces in the specification. I made a pass over the whole signature spec and updated that. This is work in progress. If you go all the way
Okay, well, yeah, so that's fine. I want to make sure we have an issue on the board, even if the work's not done, because that's why we can't.
got it.
I can't migrate this. We can't get off the spreadsheet if we have it there and we have no idea where it is.
Yeah, we don't have an issue for both the items right now.
Okay. So I think I mean, like I said, these two are basically what we're doing is going to create an issue for the external dependencies and then just track those in the notation go, which I'll fix today. And then yeah, this stuff down here, like we already have for the docs and pieces, we already have like a whole bunch of backlog items on our website that need to be cleaned up. And so that's just going to get lumped into there. That's why I don't have issues listed. And this is super generic, you know, so I don't think it makes sense to try and quote unquote migrate that. The integration tests we've already, you know, addressed in the issues that are up there. So I really think, you know, basically after, you know, you've got these two items with issues, then there's actually no point anymore to use this spreadsheet. And I guess if you have other task updates, I guess we can cover that, but yeah.
I think before Thursday's meeting, I'll make a pause. Sorry, before the Monday's meeting will move to Tuesday evening because Monday is holiday.
Okay.
Before that meeting, I'll go over and see if any tasks are missing.
Okay. Yeah. So okay, cool. So I think I migrated all the items that I could. I mean, there was no point in migrating things on the spreadsheet that were already marked as done, right? I mean, it's done. So, but I think I'm going to switch gears to the actual board, and you'll, I think, hopefully start to understand why getting away from the spreadsheet is important. Because if you look at this here, there's a lot of stuff that's not in the spreadsheet. That we have that's in either Alpha 2, Alpha 3, or RC1 across the board. And so I wanted to spend some time going through these. I think this is, you know, we could probably take up the rest of the time with this. So there are some tactical things that I wanted to cover before we go there. But I did want to cover, at least for now, just some orientation, because I am continuing to propose let's just getting off the spreadsheet like now, like within the next week, just so that there's some familiarity. I know I need to sync as well, probably again with Samir, just so he can hopefully start to become more comfortable with the board. But one of the things I'll just show so we can have the recording here for other people to watch and for you all is to just get an idea of what the board's like, and so you start to become more comfortable with it. One of the things that we have is, you know, we have all the different fields that are here, of course. I mean, all of them and then some that were on the spreadsheet. Okay. You also get the advantages of labels. We also added a priority field, which is not in the spreadsheet, to help us kind of prioritize what's most important, what's next for devs and folks to focus on. We kind of, you know, Yi, Finman, and I, we just kind of started this rough priority index of you know, for whatever it's worth of, we kind of said, well, 0 to 99 is like, we think is pretty essential. We definitely have to have it in RC1. If it's 100 or higher, you know, it probably, you know, it's not going to be like a super essential thing, but it still would be nice to be in there. But we do have every single repo now represented in the board. If you want to see all the different things, you can go to the all table to see all the different milestones. We've also aligned all of the milestone like naming. So RC1 is the same across all the different repos. The only one that's a little weird is the artifacts RC1, which I don't necessarily want to get into today. But yeah, so yeah, there's that. And we have an RC1 view, which gives us just the RC1 things. We obviously could go ahead and say anything that's done to filter out, so we see what's left. The other thing that is important to figure out is that we have a proposal here is anything that has, let's say, more than one kind of sub item to actually complete, that we have a kind of sub view, so to speak, on that item. And so for those items, we've done two different things. There's effectively an epic label. So what you can do is you can say, I want only thing that is labeled, let's say, epic. And then you have just the things that have multiple items. And if you go to that thing, let's take a look at this one. You can see that this is kind of the way that GitHub does things, where in order for this piece of work to be completed, we actually have to have both of these items linked here. And when you click on those, you can actually see that it's tracked in the actual story itself. So this kind of covers and makes it cleaner for, because a lot of, looking at the spreadsheet, a lot of times we're like, well, is that the spec? Is that the implementation? Or the implementation didn't have an issue? And then you kind of are confused on if the thing is done or not, potentially. So this kind of helps, pull it together into, logical thing that is viewable on the board as well as on the issue itself. The other thing that I'll point out, and this is, for anybody that has an issue, the actual on the right hand side, you can look and also enter the data with the priority, the end date, the start date, effort, comments, priorities, right? All these things are editable, that then get referenced back up in the board. So is there any questions or feedback on that?
Yeah, I think this is helpful. I'm getting accustomed to the new view. I think what I don't see kind of one-on-one, and then like the feature set is great. We have most of the columns that we had and more, like labeling. What I don't see is if you go back to the spreadsheet,
Yep.
The GitHub taskboard looks like just a bucket of tasks, whereas here we have these headings and sub-organized like subtasks or features, right? Like the verification policy, signing extensibility,
Right.
And things related to it. That hierarchical view and grouping is missing. It could be done with labels. Maybe there are other ways to do it. I think that and is there a way to sequence those? Well, how do you?
Yeah. So I mean, that's the thing that I was proposing with this, right? So there's kind of two mechanisms for that. So here you could add feature, right? And then you could also do labels. So those are kind of the two different variables you could utilize. So like feature in the name. So like on the board itself, like if we wanted to search for feature, right? It just does all the items that have feature in it. If I wanted to also say, instead of feature, I just wanted to search for it, because it doesn't have to be in the brackets. It could be, let's go back to this, and then let's just type in verification, right? So then I see anything that has verification in the title, and so there, how do you have this logical grouping? You could have everything that has an item could be called verification, or if you really wanted to add, I mean, I think, in my opinion, adding a label for every single scenario it becomes a label bloat. So I would recommend having consistency in naming, or and the combination of the thing I mentioned, where if you have something that delivers value, call it a feature, call it an epic, call it a user story, depending on how you want to slice that. Having this kind of structure where you have a bucketed task list underneath, that pulls all of those things together. So you basically go to, let's say, this kind of Uber epic features type item to then reference that for all the things that may be linked to it. So that would be the equivalent of, verification policy or signing extensibility, right? Where you could go and have one Uber, signing extensibility feature, and then have all those sub-linked items underneath it to track it and pull it together.
That works. I think the only downside of that, having to drill down into that view and not being able to see that in a top level flat view like this, is sometimes there are dependencies in between these tasks.
Yeah, so that's where the naming thing would work, right? So if you had a single, like for everything that's signing extensibility, if you just had one keyword that you wanted to identify across all the items, if you know, then you would get that view in the planning board, just like I showed, right? You would just literally, like I said, verification. If that was in the title, boom, you get the status of all of them by just typing that word.
I think that makes sense. I think the prefix of square bracket feature.
Yep.
Again, my preference, I would prefer that. That probably also allows us to sort the whole board alphabetically, so all of the prefixes stand together.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm open. I think we should just agree on a thing there, and then just start using that. But yeah.
I think if we go back to the spreadsheet, let's go top to bottom. Let's see which ones we can do what. I think probably for the spec, having just a RC1 top level spec item.
Spec, yeah, spec is one where we already have a spec label, and so I think that one's actually pretty well covered. Yeah, because that's going to continue to be there, right? And you're going to continue to have specs and then the implementation for everything.
Okay.
Yeah, signing is kind of, I mean, that's kind of generic. So I don't know. Yeah.
I think signing verification policy, signing extensibility is close. Verification extensibility. Again, I think my personal preference would be that square bracket feature prefix. I'm open to hear Ritesh, Rakesh. Would have been the fewer people in here today to have.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. Yeah, I mean, I think that if you know, if we're the only thing we're hung up on is what do we bracket things, then I think that's fine, and maybe it's just Samir and I, you know, flush that out, because the other thing is, I mean, verification and policy in and of itself isn't. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say this is one feature, right? I mean, this is where it starts to get into other things. We actually have right now a user story like Word doc that we're trying to look at internally on kind of what we see as in value, and we were going to bring that back to the group a little later, and I think that might kind of help pull things together. So yeah, but if unless there's any other feedback, I think we can move on.
Sure, I had one last question. If we go back to the board.
Okay. The project planning board.
Yeah.
This one.
So
Okay.
here, we have these features, and in the feature issue, you have links to sub issues, right?
Okay. Yeah. So that I chose like, because the enhancement label in my mind is another way to represent like what most people call a feature, right? That's the standard GitHub way of doing it. The problem is that, you know, you could have an enhancement which does not require sub items, right? Like you could just like that one thing, you just knock it out from that issue, and then that's it, right? And so I wanted to have a way to denote when are there things that have more than one sub item. And so what we were thinking was actually using the epic label to denote, let's say, enhancements, quote unquote, that have more than one thing attached to them.
Yeah, if you go back to the feature, that particular issue, the inspect. Yeah.
This one? Yeah. Okay.
So the implementation items to complete, those two, what stops those two items from appearing in this board? Those two.
So these two items right now, if you wanted it to appear in the board with this.
Oh no, I'm just asking, like, how does it work? How does it show just the epic top level and Does it not?
Yeah, well, so the epic is for the top level, right? And then the sub items underneath it are linked, right? So like I showed you, so here you see how when I highlighted over it, it says tracked in 172. They both say tracked in 172. So if I go to this issue, right, this shows you that basically that's the parent, right? So if I click back on this, it goes back to the root issue to like complete the story.
All right. Okay. I think that answers my questions.
Yeah, and if you wanted to see, like I said, I understand if you wanted to actually see, let's say, all three things in the same view, that's where like we would name this like a common name, whatever we want, like use the word inspect or something unique to this feature if you really cared to see it all on the board at the same time. I personally don't think that matters that much. I mean, I think what matters most to me is that we track higher level like user value adding things and then have a way to connect those together versus like seeing them all on the board at the same time. But I understand that we might want to do that, and we can, right? If we just agree on, like, let's say for this feature, we wanted to call it inspect artifact. And then if we put, if we just put inspect artifact as a keyword on both of these items, we could just search for it on here and then have it show up, right?
Yeah, that is right.
Okay. All right. Okay. So there are some like tactical, before we go to the rest of the board, there are some like tactical items that I think are really important to cover that are on the list. So there's the code reviewers group that I wanted to, it looks like we're not quite closed out on. And this is also ties back to you, Steve. I think we have, I think most of these people are already as maintainers, right? So other than Kim and Jonathan, I think, right?
Well, I'll correct that. So currently Shiva and me are maintainers on the notation.
Okay, so Prakash, Vitesh, Swim, and Jonathan. Okay, so I guess the question is, do we, because right now, like we want, for code reviews, we don't want these folks to be able to merge, but we want to count their reviews as valid for our requirement of having kind of one from each kind of party to like 2 reviews to total to merge code reviews, right?
Yeah. And I think what you want is, like, for example, Shiva and me are in the maintainers group. That will be a smaller set, but it would be great to have more code reviewers. So for example, Shiva's team, right? The more developers joining in, they're contributing. All of them will get added to the reviewers. Yeah.
So I guess I'm just thinking, like, from a permissions perspective, I don't know if we need maybe have we add them as official in the governance side of things, but if they're not going to be the ones that are allowed to merge, there's not really anybody could publicly code review, right? It's just more of an agreement for us that these people have the authority to allow, once they approve, to merge the maintainers to merge, right?
Right. It just formalizes it, so that the group that particular group doesn't have any other rights other than just the reviews being counted.
Okay.
And having that formalized.
Okay. So it sounds like we just need maybe like a PR to the group, or sorry, to the governance doc, right? And then I don't know. I don't think you can actually, well, maybe you would just have a team that is read-only that's at that list. Steve, what do you think?
Yeah, sorry, I stepped away for a second. What was the question?
I'm just wondering if we added a code reviewers team
what does that do? Like I was a little confused.
So I think I understand the intent. So you want certain people that are approved to be able to not merge code reviews, but be able to give the once they approve that the maintainers are like, sweet, I can merge it, right? So you want to have a growing list of like
that kind of
a larger list of people that are like kind of blessed to give the code review, right? And so once you see that they have given the approval, the maintainers can say, yep, we'll go ahead and merge because I know that people from this list have actually reviewed it.
It's kind of like a binding and non-binding. Is that what you're kind of trying to do? Because anybody could approve a code review.
Well, right. And so I think that the question is, do we want a group, even though they aren't necessarily going to add permissions, but just to have it replicated, or are we going to be good with just, let's say, the governance doc being updated? Because otherwise, the only thing we have to denote that from a project perspective is the actual PR itself, right? Or this issue itself. Like this one, this is the only reference right now of that we have that this is who we want people to approve. That's not going to last, right? We're going to close the issue and then it's going to be gone. So we need some way to represent this from the governance side of things.
Yeah, I guess conceptually I get it, but in practice I'm struggling on, like, the project's not that big. Do we not know who we accept code approvals from?
I think, for example, when Kim submitted reviews, we got approvals from Jared, whereas the rest of the group hadn't interacted with Jared. I think Jared is Kim's manager.
Yeah.
Giving you an example.
Well, that's a great example.
It's good to have a formalized list of who has been closely associated with the project, and I mean, as we move on and more people get involved in this, it's more difficult. It's difficult for the maintainers to say, okay, this is a valid reviewer or not. Should I count the review as part of the 2 reviews that are required to approve and merge?
But if I added Jared to the list, let's just say, and you missed the day that was added to the list, would that have made you any more confident that Jared gave you an LGTM versus somebody you recognize?
So the act of adding somebody to the code reviewers list means that we agree that this person is whatever, has the necessary competency and understanding of this project and code review the code related to it.
How would you even know that they got added to the list? I mean, are you looking to put it like to the assignees tab in the top right?
Yep.
Click on people there?
Yeah.
But I don't know if that can be filtered to a particular team.
They'll assign it to code reviewers and the notation maintainers.
So David or somebody, do you know how you can do that? Like I don't remember seeing, this is just, a question. I don't understand how the code reviewers, how the assignees thing works.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see, like, if we do this. Yeah, I don't see, I can create a team, but I don't have.
Yeah, you can add members.
I don't know. I can't assign, well, I wonder if I can assign permissions. Code review. Okay, well.
So now go back to one of the issues and see if you can assign it to that group, that team.
Okay. Yeah.
I have to refresh the page, but see what shows up here.
Oh, sorry. Let's refresh.
That was notation. Reviews.
Oh yeah, yes, thank you.
Try hit control refresh, because I can't remember which one actually pulls in the cache.
Control Shift F5.
Like conceptually, I get what you're doing. I'm just not, I'm struggling in practice. How does that work? Because I have seen code reviewers or something, maintainers in that list, but I've never seen any other teams.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it would be nice if you could. I mean, okay. So if we can just get a group of code reviewers, and then we could assign, like, it looks like there's an auto assign.
Auto assign based on what?
Yeah, it looks like round robin, load balance.
Yeah,
You could, yeah,
I think for now it's fine for the PR. When you open the PR, you can assign the reviewers, right?
but what is it having somebody in that list do? Are you going to go back and click through the teams to see who's in that, to see who this person is and what group they're in?
The intent is,
Yeah.
I don't have to go and see as long as there are 2 reviews from, I mean, I don't know what it looks like visually, but having that list formalized in any way, that helps. I'm less worried about the mechanics and the visuals of it.
just more of the governance side of things. You're like, you want to know that these are the list of people you trust to do code reviews, even if they're not core maintainers.
Yes.
Okay.
And we can figure out the mechanics and like how the work.
If you want to create a team and we LGTM that issue, what was the issue number? You just paste a link. Oh, actually, you did have a link in the notes, didn't you?
It's yeah, it's on the meeting notes, this guy here. So yeah, because we basically got 1 and 2 done, right? And then number 3 is the one we haven't addressed. That's why I'm bringing it up right now. So
Okay, so we basically, Samir and I both approved. David, looks like you approved for whatever. I mean, technically Niaz nor Justin, but that's fine. So let's create a group. Wait, do we have, look, who's John?
so yeah, so I just created notation code reviewers. And then I think we've just added those 6 people to that. And then I mean, I guess if we really think we want to update the governance for that, we can, but I don't know, at least that would, adding the group would kind of make it public so that we know that's, I mean, at least been checked off.
I've been drafting the code review criteria. I think I'll have it ready by next Tuesday.
Okay.
And then
Okay. Yeah.
I'll reference this group in there. And yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. All right. Yeah. So that's cool. So I'll just, I think what I'll do is I'll just add the people to this group, and then basically we can close that item out, and then you'll maybe just reference the issue or whatever once you have the code reviewer, documentation on there.
Yeah, I'll also get Mia's to the LGTM.
Okay. All right, cool.
Okay.
All right, so we can go to the next thing, because we only have like a couple minutes left. The other one is 2 minutes. I don't know if we want to try and tackle this now, but it's really important that we lock on the code. Not this one. Well, let me just pull it from my list of the.
A very tactical one while you're pausing. Can we agree, because I'm trying to do the PR ones we talked about. Sorry, the CLI PRs, but we agreed that we were going to merge 171, the link I just pasted there, because that's the baseline. That's just what exists today. And then we'll do PRs against it to modify and so forth.
Did you just paste?
I put that in the chat.
Okay.
It's just I don't have any.
Yeah, this one's been up for a while. Yeah. So we have, looks like nobody's approved it yet. Yeah, this is an important one to build on a lot of other things.
Yeah, and all it does is reflect what's currently in the CLI. So the whole idea is that then we can do individual PRs, like I want to change notation cert, or I want to change notation whatever, and then we do individual PRs against this baseline. So I can just get at least one. I'll just merge it into it. I just didn't want to blindly merge it.
Can we update this, put a comment that this is what reflects the alpha 1 set of command experience and that it doesn't represent the RC1, because there's going
I
to
believe
be.
it says that in the doc. The following spec outlines the notations of the CF commits are what's currently available in alpha 1, alpha V07 alpha 1. It's line 4.
Well, wouldn't you want to put this at least to the current 0, not
I
whatever?
don't even care. Like, let's just get it.
Okay,
That could be the next PR that we.
Okay,
All
right, yeah, because this thing's been sitting around for a long time. Yeah. Since
Sorry,
May.
it says that it is alpha 1. Can we explicitly specify that there may be breaking changes from this to RC1? RC1
Can we merge it and make a PR to do whatever it is you want to do? Because the whole idea of this is blocking every individual PR we want to make on individual CLI changes. If you want to make a change to the header, like I don't have a way to do it right now, and I'm in back-to-back meetings that I'm already running late to, so I'm just trying to get a baseline in so we can.
We can wait till Tuesday on this one. I'll need Samir or Niaz's feedback. I don't
But
want
it's just-
to.
But it's just a doc. It's just a doc, right? That we don't have anything for, so it's not gonna.
I gotta drop.
That's what's there now. So it's not gonna define our